Good morning, it's me. I'm in work today, so I obviously need to wear a face mask. So obviously today I asked you to get started on 1 point, or to kind of get yourself ready to start 2 point perspective drawing. So that's what we're going to start with today, and we're going to use pretty much the same building that we've done on the last couple of exercises, which is Villa Savoy. Okay, so Villa Savoy for a 2 point perspective. I feel totally stupid speaking to you with this on, by the way, but hopefully my voice will be clear enough on the video. But what we're going to do, sorry, I had something on the screen there. So what we're going to do is effectively draw Villa Savoy again, very similar to what we'd drawn, well, the same building as we'd drawn previously. We drew from inside the upstairs courtyard, but today we're going to be drawing that from the outside. Okay, so effectively a 2 point perspective drawn. If we think about it in its simplest sense, okay, you've got two vanishing points either side of the page, okay, and you might have an inclination with what they actually represent, and the vanishing points tend to be the horizon line. Okay, that's roughly where it is, and they could be at different points on the page depending on what view that you're trying to get. Now on this page here, we're effectively getting a worm's eye view, so we're looking up the way. So the vanishing points tend to be towards, the bottom of the page. If we were to draw the horizon lines up there, you'd be looking down on it, almost like a bird's eye view. Okay, so again, I'll just kind of indicate to you, the simplest ones for us to look at from a 2 point perspective point of view is you could pretty much work out, I'll just use this exercise here. You can effectively work out more or less where those vanishing points are going to end up, purely based on things. So these two lines would eventually come together to meet at a vanishing point, and similar there. So the shape we're doing is effectively a cuboid, which isn't a difficult shape to do. In fact, it's really, really easy. And when we do this detail here, we'll get away with a bit of artistic license and do a bit of freehand. So you'll be happy to hear that this drawing is not as difficult as it looks. But just to re-emphasise that point I was trying to make to you earlier about vanishing points and where they end up on the page, I'm just going to do two examples here, just so you can kind of get an indication. You don't need to do this, but this is just to kind of give you some form of an idea, at least, of what is I'm trying to tell you. Okay, so as I said earlier, if I do a vanishing point here, and let's just say here, okay, the vanishing point should be on the same plane. Okay, you can't have one up here and then one up there. Okay, they've got to be in line with one another. So let's just say I've done my vanishing points there, and I decided to draw a shape like that. So you always start off by drawing the straight edge first, and then I just say I want to make the shape from that height. Excuse me. I'll then just move those lines to there, to there, and then from there to there. Okay, now you can see what I get there is that it doesn't look like much on the page right now, but if I was to determine, if I want to make this kind of square, as it were, what I'd have to do is, again, going back to what I said previously about things when they go towards a vanishing point, they diminish in size. So we can't say, right, that size there is going to make that square, because that'll just make it big and fat. So what we want to try and do is make it roughly square. And again, it's just a case of guessing that. So if you see the lines I do there, and then the lines I do there, what that will actually end up doing is giving me the form of a building that roughly represents something in perspective. Okay, so there's the first one for you. Okay, vanishing points are quite low down, and what that indicates is a worm's eye view, so you're actually looking up at the building itself. Now realistically, because my vanishing points pass under there, I can effectively draw the underside of it as well, if I so wish. But if this was a building, we wouldn't see the underside of it. Okay, we would have kind of landscaping in some shape or form, grass or whatever, kind of indicating that was the underside. So the next one I wanted to show you was the same shape, but with the vanishing points drawn higher up. Okay, so again, similar exercise in terms of putting the vanishing points above. This time I'm going to start with this line underneath the vanishing points. Okay, so again, straight line to begin with, and just take the lines out to that edge there, and similarly do the exact same here and here. Okay, so this time, because I'm looking down on something, I will see the top on it. So again, I'm just going to take the lines roughly where I think's right and take them back to the edge at that point there. Okay, so 2-point perspective is really pretty neat if you wanted to do like a street corner or something like that. You know, you could populate different buildings, different shapes along that. If you really want, if you had the time and you want to do it, please do it. But like I say, I'm not going to insist on that. The important thing is we get on with the Villa Savoye. So you could see once I've done that, how it all roughly looks and relates in terms of a building form. Again, going back to the things I was encouraging you to do, draw and pen first. Draw and pencil first, sorry, and then if you wanted to draw and pen. But again, I'm rushing through this. But you can hopefully see from those drawings there the difference in perception. I could see, you know, the roof on that one was that one. I can see the underside, but realistically I wouldn't want to show the underside. So that just shows you how changing where your vanishing points are can have a big impact on how your building visualise it, you know, how you visualise your building. So if we look at Villa Savoye, it's pretty much at a similar angle to that one. So we want, you know, the vanishing points to be in the bottom third of our page when we start off drawing that, which is what I'm going to do now. So there's videos on YouTube that I'll put up as well that shows you someone detailing it and things like that as well. But ultimately, we're going to be starting off with this drawing here. So forgive me whilst people walk past and might not realise I'm in here beavering away. But try and put your vanishing points as wide across the page as you possibly can. Okay, so I'm going to put one there. And I'm going to have to move my ruler along just a wee bit until I'm at this point here. So that's effectively a horizon line on my page. You can do it either way. Make sure it's below halfway on your page. And the first thing when we're looking at Villa Savoye is we're going back to exactly what I just done. Okay, now this building's really good because what it does is it illustrates the same shape on the ground floor and the bottom floor, but the form is represented differently. Okay, and this is when we're coming to architectural theory, which we'll talk about when it comes to doing the theory part I said we'd do after Christmas. So the whole theory side of things relates to you know, a solid building mass. Okay, so the solid building mass on the top is represented by, you know, it's effectively, you know, brickwork that's rendered. Okay, but on the ground floor you've effectively got loads of different columns. So that's defining a boundary just like that top half is, but we can see through it, we can walk through it, and that's the fundamental difference between, you know, the different materials that are choosing the form. Okay, so the top half is the same shape as the bottom half, but the bottom half is effectively, its boundaries are defined by these columns as opposed to the top half, which is defined by the solid walls. Okay, so we'll start off by just drawing the whole shape. Okay, so we're going to draw the top half and the bottom half and just enclose it all in a cube. Okay, so just like the last time, round the middle. Again, if I moved this, you know, that straight edge, if I wanted that, you know, if I moved that to this edge of the page, I would see more of that side than I would that side. It would be much smaller. So try and keep it central so you can see both sides approximately the same size. And again, this is where you've just got to try and do a bit of guesswork and say, right, well, that's the top half to this point, bottom half's going to be roughly here. And again, take your vanishing points back to that line there. Okay, I'll be honest, I reckon I've probably drawn my vanishing points too low, but that's okay, because everyone's drawings, again, just like the last one, depending where you draw your vanishing point is going to determine what your building looks like. So yeah, again, I ain't fussed about that. This is just about you being able to draw graphically. But a worm's eye view is quite a good view, if I'm being honest with you. So, so there's the top half and the bottom half drawn. The building itself is square, so we want to roughly determine what would look correct. Okay, so there's one bit there, and I'll probably draw this bit in here. And you can see what I've effectively done already is I've got the solid top half bit done, and I'm just going to leave the bottom half for now. Okay, but again, I've just defined the boundary of that just now, and that lets me see exactly what that's going to look like. Okay, so to get the top half started then, there's a couple of things I probably want to draw your attention to at this stage. I mean, we could effectively just draw the walls on the outside and that's it, more or less done. But what you can see here is you've got window heads and window sills at both levels. Now, they both come to meet at a relatively central point, which is this solid line here. Okay, you can see the vanishing points, the lines all meet at the same level. So that helps you determine the height at both sides. If you started measuring the windows from there and drew them up to there and then done the same again, you might not necessarily get the consistency. So again, look at the height and the distances between the two, and just try and make that equidistant. And then it's a case of just taking those lines from the edge back to your vanishing points in the corners. Okay, you don't have to go all the way down, just as long as the end of your ruler is on the vanishing point. That'll help make it straight. Okay, so again at this side and again at this side as well, and you can see how the windows are basically formed. So again, I can take things, you know, this is quite close to here, and at the end it's a little bit shorter. Similarly, there's a bigger gap at this side. Yeah, it finishes round about here. So you can see already what I've got is I've got the windows you know, planned out. Okay, hopefully you can see that, because obviously I appreciate I'm drawing in thick pencil just now, but you can see what I've done there. Okay, so I've got the windows more or less drawn in. Now, what you'll notice on the underside, you know, because we're looking up at something, what we're actually going to see is we're going to see the underside. We can't see it too much in this picture, but you might be able to make it out, is we actually see the underside of the opening here. Okay, so this is a solid, this is an opening, whereas this bit's a window, but you can actually see the underside of that. So there's going to be a thickness on the underside here that we need to demonstrate. So I'm just going to make a guess about what that looks like from a size perspective, and say that that is what I believe will be the thickness of it. And similarly, I do the same at this size here, and we're not going to see this so much because it's represented through a window, but at least what it's doing is giving us a bit of perspective. So what you'll notice is when we've got the columns, okay, there's 5 along this side, and then there's 3 along this side. This one that you see here that you seem to think is in line with these 3 is actually the opposite side of this. So there's 5 go along the sides and 3 go along the bottoms, okay, because you can see they're slightly differently aligned. Now this is the key to it. Okay, when we're drawing in perspective, it's very difficult to try and draw lines that are actually measured accurately. So we need to determine where the middle of the drawing is, so that we can determine where this middle column is. Okay, so for each elevation, the easiest way to do this is to basically, you can draw a line, but I don't draw a line because it's just congested drawing. Just mark an X at both sides, here to here. Okay, just like drawing a box. Okay, so say this is my perspective elevation. If I draw a line between there and there, what that'll tell me is that that is the middle. And it doesn't look like the middle, but remember what I said about things disappearing the further away they get from you. Okay, sorry, I'll show that up a bit up close. That one. Okay, so if I had a you know, a perspective of a wall, what if I drew a line between there and there, that would tell me that that is the middle. Okay, so we do the same here. So right away you can see what's happened is this has told me that that's where the middle of the columns is. So I'm going to make sure that my columns are all aligned roughly with the same distance on the underside here. So the first one is going to be here, and then obviously what I need to then do is plan out the remainder of the columns. So the middle one's there. I'll start off by drawing another one here, and then in between the two of these, again going back to the same point I made earlier, determine where the middle bit is, and that's going to be best represented here. And then similarly, if I choose an end point, which I'm going to make here, and then draw a difference between here and here, and then again between there and there, what that means is that my columns are spaced out evenly. Okay, I've seen people try these drawings before, and the difference between a good one and a bad one is when you get the proportions right in terms of the distances they are away. Now, I've just drawn straight lines here, but actually what you need to do is thicken up because they are columns. So again, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Remember, the thickness of a column at this side is going to be much thicker than the column at this side, because this is a smaller section. Sorry, the vanishing point is a bit further away, so it's going to be a bit smaller. Okay, so your column should incrementally increase in thickness the closer you get to the middle. Alright, so you can just draw them using simple lines like that. And then from my point of view, I'm going to start darkening it up now so you can see things a bit better. So I've got these columns on the underside, and I'm just going to draw the lines up like that. Now the columns are round, so what you want to do is just do a rough kind of rounded nib at the top, and similarly at the bottom. And that just demonstrates, forgive my lack of neatness, but hey ho. I'm trying to rush through it so you're not watching a video for 25-30 minutes. So there's the columns drawn in on that side. Okay, so right away you can see what I've now got is I've got a straight edge on the upside. So the shape is actually coming together quite nicely. Like so. And then similarly. Now remember what I was telling you earlier about drawing instruments and all that jazz. Make sure they're clean, make sure we're using them appropriately. So right away you can see what I've got is that underside done. Now